What's cracking, ladies and gentlemen? FortyeniN coming at you with another community shoutcast for the UGC Dota League Season 2. We're loading into game number 2 of the best of 2 series for the Eastern Invite between Team Joey, currently the highest ranked team in the Eastern Invite, and mate, who I believe are ranked 3rd. I am going to have to apologize because my mic has decided to crap out on me during the end of game number 1, so for game number 2 I will just be using my default laptop mic. So the audio quality might be a little bit iffy. Hopefully it should work out in the end. Looks like Team Joey once again opting to go for the first ban Terrorblade. This is a hero they really don't like to play against. Despite their successes against it in the past, particularly against, I believe it was We Like Rice, where Joey were able to utilize a Zeus in the mid lane to really shut down the effectiveness of the Terrorblade, and Joey opting to go for a second ban Phantom Assassin, and mate, instantly snap up the Tidehunter as they also opt to give a respect ban to Lenti and ban out the Batrider. And Team Joey, Nicotic and Lentif really were able to carry them through that game, especially with the sheer amount of farm Nicotic had. I believe at one point near the end of the game he had 30k net worth. Joey opted to pick up the Elder Titan first, so immediately both sides are showing away their hands with their offlane heroes. And Joey picking up the Tidehunter, I believe it will be Megalomania playing the Rubik. So Rubik will be used to pressure the Tidehunter to ensure that he always catches out Rubik inside the Ravage. Otherwise, if Rubik is ever able to steal a Ravage, that effectively swings the favor of the fight into Team Joey. So Rubik does function as a very powerful counterpick to the Tidehunter, even if he isn't actively serving as a threat to the Tide. Just the fact that he's able to provide invisible pressure by forcing Tide to only use Ravage when he's able to catch Rubik. Otherwise, the potential for the spell steal does make him stay his hand. That hesitation really can cost them these early engagements. So mate, deliberating for their second pickup, the Ogre Magi, which they usually do ban second, is available in the pool. They opt to go for the Witch Doctor instead. And so Witch Doctor, a very powerful support hero in the fact that a lot of teams have been experimenting with running max Voodoo Restoration build after you max out the Paralyzing Cask. And so that increases Witch Doctor's survivability, not only in these early engagements, but in the lane. And that does provide a fair amount of utility, since Witch Doctor's Voodoo Restoration is actually surprisingly potent because it applies, I believe, 10 pulses of the heal per second. It actually does heal a substantial amount. And so Witch Doctor works well against the Rubik, since Rubik is a defensive support hero that has very limited offensive ability on his own. Witch Doctor as well, very defensive hero, but he's got more overall gank potential early on, at least with the Paralyzing Cask, if he's ever able to get a good cast bounce off, if he rotates, say, towards the mid lane, where the mid lane is usually going to be hanging around near the range creep. We've now got a respect ban to Nicotic's Death Prophet, who was able to almost single-handedly win that game, as Joey and mate were neck and neck up until the point where they were able to catch one fight with Mule not having buyback, and that really did cost them the game. This Nicotic, the Exorcism goes through Blur, disregards the evasion coming in from that, the sheer amount of presence he was able to provide, especially since he opted to build his hero for survivability with the help of Megalomania, going for the maxed out Warcry as well as the Vladimir's Offering to further beef up the rest of his team. Joey chooses to ban out the Enigma as well as the Skywrath Mage. They tend to prioritize teamfight heroes, as Joey like to utilize their superior coordination and are usually able to apply a lot of pressure early on with their rotating supports to be able to take these fights. And Joey, as I was talking about them loving teamfights, they pick up the Magnus. So Nicotic going to be playing the Magnus in the mid lane, with Lentif most likely going to be playing the Elder Titan in the off lane. This is something they've run before. The power of this is the fact that you've got RP to set up for the Earth Splitter. That combination alone is enough to win you the fight almost instantly. But then we've got the Ember Spirit pickup, so we could potentially be seeing Ember Spirit also in the mid lane and maybe switching it up, so having Magnus as the safe laner, or alternatively Ember Spirit in that one position safe lane farm. As mate pick up the Zeus, and the Ember Spirit instantly picked in response to the Zeus, since Ember Spirit does very well against the Zeus in lane with that Flame Guard. Disregards all the damage and all the control, therefore the Zeus has in that lane. He could eat the Arc Lightning and not really give a damn. We've also got a Silencer ban coming up from mate. Really not a big fan of that hero and its ability to completely disrupt the team fights. The Zeus ban does impact, the Zeus pickup does impact mate negatively in this case because there's the Ember Spirit available. If they're laned against each other, the Ember Spirit should actually control the lane quite handily against the Zeus. And once he gets that level 2, Flame Guard can choose to play very aggressively, especially if he catches Zeus out of position. But that being said, both Nicotic and Mule, very experienced mid lane players. I'm sure they've faced this matchup before and have some form of experience against it. The advantage of the Zeus against the Ember Spirit is the fact that with your Lightning Bolt, you should be able to instantly break that Flame Guard. And so it's a bit of a double-edged sword in that case. If Zeus is able to do very well level 1 and find a fair amount of farm without Ember Spirit being able to deny him too heavily, he actually can try to wrest control from the lane away from him. Of course, the biggest strength of the Ember Spirit is you're going to have to deal with him at one point or another. He's one of the best late-game heroes in the game, since he eventually reaches a point of critical mass, where he hits so hard with the Slate of Fist that he's able to 1 or 2 shot your backline heroes, and that instantly is able to effectively win you these fights. Especially if you decide to try to breach high ground, unprepared against an Ember Spirit, he could delay pushes, he could turn those pushes into team wipes, especially once the Battle Fury comes online, with something like a Daedalus. So yeah, now mate, really deliberating, chewing through almost all the reserve time for their 4th pick. They go for an Axe instead, so we could actually be seeing what looks like Zeus going to be run in that 4 position role in conjunction with the Witch Doctors to 5. With Axe going to be played by Mule in that mid lane role, and so counterpicks on counterpicks. Joey counterpick what they assume is going to be a mid lane Zeus with the Ember Spirit, and yeah, nah, mate, realizing that the Ember Spirit was only picked up because there was a Zeus to counteract the Zeus, they opt to go instead for the Axe. And so Axe does exceptionally well in the mid lane against any melee heroes, because you've got the You've got the well coming out from Axe, especially at level 1, with the Stout Shield and maybe a Ring of Protection, to ensure that he can just wade in through the creeps and dish out a massive amount of DPS. So we've got an Ancient Apparition band coming in from mate, as well as the Witch Doctor. Looks like I am experiencing a little bit of lag on my end. It seems to be a little bit unstable, I do apologize. Also, if you do note the audio quality is a bit lower, my mic, which usually has been doing pretty well for me, I think the cable, there might be something wrong with that. For whatever reason, it stopped working, so I've had to resort to the laptop mic. It is a hell of a lot lower quality, so I do apologize. We've also got a Dazzle ban now coming out from Joey, which is a little bit surprising considering the fact that Axe actually counters Dazzle, since he could Culling Blade through the Shallow Grave. But that being said, Dazzle at the same time works well against Axe, since he could Heal Bomb. Or it works well with the Axe, sorry, since you could use the Weave to amplify his damage. You've also got the guaranteed Heal Bomb in conjunction with the Call. And Joey opting to pick up the Jakiro, so we're going to be seeing Rubik and Jakiro most likely as a support. Jakiro also can be run in that core position role, and Elder Titan can be run as that 4. But most likely we're going to be seeing the Elder Titan as that offlane, so they really want to find farm on him. But that being said, Joey does have that flexibility. And yeah, nah, mate, opted to go for the 1 position Slark, so Kin Killer going to be on that Slark. Mule going to be on Zeus, and looks like we're going to be seeing Broda on the Axe. So they aren't going to be sending Axe into the mid lane after all. Looks like it is going to be what appears to be a support / pseudo core Axe with Axe in the jungle. So yeah, no, maybe this time looking to go for a bit greedy play themselves as UGTFO going to be the offlane. So if they are able to leave the Elder Titan against the Tide Hunter, it's actually a bit of an even matchup, because on one hand you've got the Anchor Smash for Tide to be able to control the lane because he debuffs the enemy hero's base attack. But on the other, you also have the fact that the Elder Titan gets a lot of his damage from the Ancestral Spirit, and with that natural order can trade blow for blow. So it should be a bit of an interesting matchup, nonetheless, to see which one of these comes out on top. Nicotic going to be the mid lane Ember Spirit, so we're just going to wait for the last player to really pick up who they're going to be playing. So Magnus, potentially going to be run in that almost support position role, since, or at least in that tri-lane core position. Looks like the Dota 2 network is having a little bit of lag as well, since these players another pause coming out from them with a cheeky bit of banter. So it looks like one of their players is actually AFK. Hopefully Oranges will be rejoining them shortly. So it looks like we are going to be seeing what looks like a safe lane Magnus with an offlane Elder Titan. So introducing the players over from mate, their captain Broda going to be what appears to be the 4 position Zeus. Standard Mule, so actually Mind Games on Mind Games, they do switch, so we are going to be seeing a 4 position Zeus, with Axe going to be sent into the mid lane to counteract the Ember Spirit, going to be played by a Mule, very proficient Axe player. I believe he's got a ridiculous number of games, only like 200 games on Axe alone. Ken Killer going to be playing the 1 position Slark, they are rotating him to the safe lane, as UGTFO going to be on the 3 position offline Tide Hunter, making his way there with the safety ward in tow. Cox going to be the 5 position Witch Doctor in this case. Usually you want Witch Doctor to take farm priority, but because you've got a Zeus, the hero naturally takes EXP priority at least over the Witch Doctor, so Cox is going to be left picking up support items for now, at least until Broda is able to find something like a Soul Ring, and maybe translate that into Arcane Boots. Very greedy pub ward being placed by Lenteef. The reason why you don't see this ward used as a safety ward is the fact that because it provides vision of rune and also provides vision air, you usually assume that the offlane is going to be placing a defensive ward, usually here in an unconventional spot around there, or you're going to be going for a block. So you can even occasionally see wards being placed here from time to time. By placing a ward there, especially with the enemy Zeus, because he's got clarity, he's going to afford to just throw out the W to be able to try check wards here and here. And so, because the most common sentry ward placement is going to be there to try to scout out these areas where most safety wards are placed, you usually don't want to place a safety ward there. It's a little bit too much of a giveaway. If you're on the Radiant side, you can't. That's an excellent ward spot because it also spots out if the offlane is hiding around the tree line in this area. But usually it's a little bit too greedy. He has picked up an Invis rune though, so Lenteef should be able to ensure that he's able to stay alive till almost level 2. Sentry wards are available for Megalomania, so taking no chances. This is the power of the support position Zeus, is he's able to instantly burn down wards just by spamming out the W. Stout Shield actually being sent to Nicotic, he's forced to waste one of his tangos. But he's against the big bad Axe, and Ember Spirit in this matchup does absolutely terribly. Axe is just able to bully him at the lane. Just by running at him, he should be able to ensure that with the Willing Death coming in from him, the counter Helix, especially since Nicotic only has one arm to work with, so every single one of those counter Helixes are going to do a lot. And once Mule picks up level 2, with that call, especially since call's duration has been buffed, especially the early levels, Nicotic already at almost a third of his HP. And Mule, he's now got call. Nicotic can't do anything in this lane. He even opted for a very greedy Flame Guard at 1. If he went for Searing Chains, he could at least use it to prevent Mule from just diving on him and going ham. But already we're seeing the power of the Axe in that mid lane as Mule doing a lot of work. He could actually choose to go for a kill right now. He's going to dive him past the tower, wait until he gets in front of creep range. If he wants to go for this, Nicotic does have Searing Chains available. That Flame Guard just tickling him. Mule should be off to a great start. Probably going to be going for Tranquil Boots to provide them that sustainability, as well as the increase in EHP with the armor. But over in the bottom lane, Lenteef, what actually hasn't been dewarded so far, Broder. Just spamming out the lightning bolt from the look of it. But Lenteef, he's doing it not too shabby. UGTFO on the other hand, duking out with Sidhu, and Sidhu going for the Liquid Fire at 1. Looks like we've got another pause coming up from Megalomania, so the boys and Joey having a few issues on their end when it comes to internet. Glad to see I'm not the only one currently having some kind of network issues. And Sidhu once again going in for the cheeky talk. As at that point in Liquid Fire, the effectiveness of the Jakiro is the fact that you've got a guaranteed way to deal dot damage and harassment damage to the enemy offlaner. And because UGTFO went for a very defensive boot first item build, the Liquid Fire is going to really pay off on Jakiro, and it also gives you the added benefit of being under pressure and take that tower. Even if you're the ones playing defensively, once you get to level 3 Liquid Fire, you can actually just tank a tower shot, throw that Liquid Fire and back away. It's something that was first popularized by MVP Phoenix. I believe it might have been Reason that was playing the Jakiro. And since then, teams really have started to pick up on the power of the Jakiro, especially with all the buffs to the Yule Scepter. Mule in the mid lane matchup already got double the CS of Nicotic, and Nicotic, this is an unfair matchup from. There's actually nothing the Ember Spirit can really do. If Mule happens to catch himself out of position, Nicotic could try to turn if he gets a very good Searing Chains and maybe in front of tower range. But Mule's got the Tranquil Boost flying out to him very shortly. And once those comes online, with the armor boost you get from that, as well as the armor you get from call, since you do get, I believe it's 40 armor when you call, you can actually shrug off tower shots and play incredibly aggressively. Will be interesting to see if Mule actually opts to go for a point in the Battle Hunger, or if he chooses to forego it. In the competitive scene, when Axe is picked up, you usually see Axe completely forego Battle Hunger and choose to prioritize maxing out the call once you max out the counter Helix, of course. Looks like we are resuming, so far things are looking very good for Yanam, mate. Their cores are finding a lot more farm. That being said though, Nicotic, he's doing the best he can in a bad situation. Ember Spirit, much like the Sven in that mid, if he's running that mid lane role, can choose to play very aggressively, but while I say that, Mule should be taking first blood. Searing Chains unfortunately whips, and just barely able to keep himself alive. Mule actually had boots, so he could have chosen to dive, as he had the movement speed advantage, but playing it safe forces Nicotic to blow through all's region. He could look to go for another kill attempt now, especially since he's got the creep wave of the enemy team coming in towards him, so you want to call when you're in range of the creeps as well to maximize your chances of getting that counter Helix. He could choose to do so now. Looks like first blood actually went to UGTFO while that happened. So looks like Megalomania able to set that up with the haste room with the telekinetic lift, follow in with what appears to be the skewer into the shockwave. So a little bit too focused on this man mode matchup in the mid lane. Over in the bottom lane, Lenteef doing a lot better than his Diag and his Radiant counterpart. Even though he is only level 2, UGTFO, he does have the comeback mechanic of being a stack and clear out ancients. So far, as in game 1, UGTFO really being underperforming in that off lane. Gave away first blood on the puck in game number 1, I believe. Game number 2 as well, not really doing too crash on. Tranquil Boots now available for Mule. Will be interesting to see if he chooses to go for a bottle. With the fact that you've now got a rune in both top and bot, it's almost assumed that most mid players will go for a bottle, even if the hero itself doesn't make too much usage of it, just for the fact that you can bottle up something like a double damage or a haste rune to rotate into a gank for another lane, as well as the sustain that you're guaranteed to get, because you never want to give the runes away to the enemy mid, especially when they're a mid that are playing from behind like the Ember Spirit. He can make fantastic use of that bottle to be able to give himself at least some kind of sustainability. It looks like Nicotic forced a bottle crow, so it really is hampering its effectiveness. King Killer, he loves to go for Shadow Blade as opposed to Blink Dagger on the slot. Will be interesting to see if he chooses to go for the Blink Dagger this game, because the Blink overall gives you a lot more utility, and as with game number 1 where you saw where he opted not to go for the early Blink Dagger on Nyx, really did cost his team in the end, as he was caught out of position that led to that five-man wipe, really did cost them a good chunk of that game. Nicotic, this time able to land that Searing Chains, keeps himself alive for now. But we've got a ping coming in as Coxie, he's looking to play very aggressively. He actually catches out Nicotic, throws out the cask, and a few more right clicks of the illusions there to actually eat the Searing Chains. Great play coming up from Cox. He realized that the first thing that Nicotic's going to do, once the cask stun wears off, is throw out the Searing Chains. So by sending his illusions forward, he's able to ensure that the Searing Chains has a much lower chance of proccing on Mule, for him to be able to follow up with the Culling Blade if need be. The biggest strength of the mid lane acts is the fact that you get a very early dunk. And with the rework to the Culling Blade, Mule actually got to be very careful, as Nicotic, if he was able to land Searing Chains, could actually look to go for a kill. And Mule is going to be taking a death. Got very greedy there, underestimated the damage potential of that maxed out Flame Guard, especially with the dot damage from the Searing Chains, and Nicotic, a very skilled Ember Spirit player, able to make him pay for that. Cox now positioning himself off on the side, actually eats the retreat even though you no longer have to. Lentiv, he's picked up level 5, so he's actually looking very farm to actually choose to man fight them. Malediction coming up from Cox, so he's going for a very aggressive build, choosing even to max out Malediction over Cask. And so the rationale behind that is Malediction is actually very inefficient as a spell until the 3rd point. And so if you are going to go for Malediction, you might as well go all in and make sure you get that maxed out as soon as possible. It also works in this case with the Slug, because you've got the fact that with the stat steal from Essence Shift, you increase the damage Malediction does, Mule. Animation cancelling the call. Looks like he forgot to equip his cosmetics. He does waste that call, Nicotic. Got to be careful, there's always the call to be aware of, and he's going to get dunked. Mule has enough damage for it to be in lethal range, but Nicotic just pushing him out for now. Both mid lane players playing chicken with each other. Broder, he's also hanging around, so he can use the lightning bolt to be able to burn off the flame guard. So he's just going to bodyguard the rune to ensure that Mule's able to find it. So Mule could afford to play a bit greedier. Remnant's being dropped us. Nicotic, he could afford to go balls on this. Broder, they really can't do much. He does pick up the haste rune though. Now pinging out Mule saying, buddy, need some help. Call being cancelled as the Remnant was there. And Nicotic drops the Remnant TP, so much like Tinker, he's got the ability to be able to constantly return to a lane once he uses his TP. And so a very efficient play coming up from him. Once you've used all your spells and you're completely out of mana or lowered HP, drop a Remnant before you TP. But Broder goes in on oranges. Might actually have enough damage to be bring him down. He's got another Lightning Bolt coming out, but Stidu, he's there with the 2 points in Dual Breath, no points in Ice Path coming out from him. He's just maximizing his damage, and the fire, it burns. Broder going to be completely zoned out now, forced to go back home. Nicotic choosing to play very aggressively against Mule, because he knows that Mule won't be able to land the call on him. Well, that happens. Looks like Cox is able to find a kill over on the Elder Titan. Looks like there's actually a Sentry Ward being placed there by Lentiv, so he may be paranoid of the fact that they could have placed an aggressive ward to be able to spot out any rotations coming in for the tier 1, so it gives them the information to know if they decide to dive. The King Killer holding him to his goal for now. He has picked up Tread, so very conventional build order for him. Mule does dunk down Nicotic. Megalomania rotated it a little bit too late. And Mule, he's looking very fly. Almost has his Blink Dagger. He's going to be having an 8-minute blink. And the biggest strength of Axe is he power spikes like no one else for the first 20 minutes, much like an Undying. He might as well be your Lord and Savior. If he jumps on you, there's not much you can really do against him. Especially with that maxed out call, it's going to be coming online very shortly. So 100 gold away from his blink, and he's able to act as a secondary, or as the primary initiator for his team, until UGTFO finds his blink dagger. And the biggest strength of Axe in the mid lane is much like a Shadow Fiend. You can just rotate into the jungle, clear out the camps, and then rotate back into the mid lane. Very defensive ward being placed. Actually, 2 wards being dropped by the Dire side to ensure Necrotic's able to find farms. This is the biggest weakness of running a very greedy mid. It forces all your resources to be used to keep them in the game. Since in this case, it actually would have made a lot more sense had they run the Magnus in the mid lane against the Axe, since you at least have the escape mech of the Skewer. Since Magnus, even if he is able to find a lot of farm, while he does have a huge teamfight impact with the reverse polarity, nowhere near the same amount of impact that the Ember Spirit's going to have. He's their only real form of late game. So he's going to be the pivot upon which the entire team functions on. Mule showing off that blink dagger, looks like he was able to find a cheeky kill. Dunks him into the ground. Kin, he should be fine against the Elder Titan. Elder Titan won't ever be able to find a kill against him because he's always got the get out of jail free card with the Shadow Dance. But that being said, he can actually apply a fair amount of pressure. But Slark, the biggest strength of Slark as a core hero is he's very self-sufficient. Once he gets Shadow Dance, or level 2, level 3, you can afford to leave him alone, because once he gets the point in Pounce as well as the Essence Shift against another melee offlaner, he just pounces them, stabs them, trades very efficiently with the Poor Man's Shield, with the Orb of Venom, and with the Essence Shift that your supports, it frees them up to be able to rotate across the map, or to be able to make efficient use of the jungle. And Cox, realizing that he still is going to need that point in Voodoo Restoration, goes for the value point, and to the first point in Voodoo Restoration, the most efficient point, as far as mana for heal is concerned, UGTFO picks up the Arcane Boots, but no stacking of the Ancients done so far. Really does want to start stacking those, or get somebody else to stack them for him, so maybe have Broda do so. Because if he's not able to find his Blink Dagger in the next 5 to 6 minutes, he really is going to lose the majority of his impact. Unless his team are able to pick up the slack for him. Sidhu being given space so he can pick up his farm. Since Magnus has picked up his Blink Dagger, Necrotic actually zoned completely out of the lane. This is the power of Axe in the mid lane. Necrotic can't really do anything against him, especially now he has his Blink. Since Cole actually has a very low animation cast point, you should be able to catch out the Ember Spirit before he could Remnant out. Mule looks like, by the power of his cosmetics, performance has gone up. Lenti with the Invis Rune, going to be providing a little bit of scaling pressure, but if he is too close to Mule, Mule actually will be aware that he's there because of the natural order debuff. So Lenti, keeping his distance, they might look to play aggressively against Broda. Since Broda's all on his lonesome, he's completely foregoing Q since he realizes that he's not going to have to mana pool to stand it since he is playing that support position role. Megalomania going very far forward, they do go into bait coming in. Oranges does have to reverse polarity, but Mule instantly dunks him to the ground. They catch their RP on 2. With the help of the natural order, they should be able to bring him down. Oranges should be fine. He's got the blink available in a few seconds. Lenteef punches Cox into the ground with the staple gun. It's the power of the natural order in conjunction with the Ancestral Spirit. Kin catches with a very long-range pounce, and Mule, even though he whipped that cull, he's able to land the cull, and UGTFO, he's got Ravage. He's ahead of the party. Throws in a Ravage, only catches 1 as Orange's blink far forward. That's a whiff Ravage, and UGTFO now burns Necrotic. Screams, I'm helping, panics, ravages, and then dies. Not looking too crash off for UGTFO this series. Mule, however, really able to pick up the slack if he decides to go for the Aghanim Scepter, which is a fairly common build order for Axe, especially if you get a very early blink. Really does increase his teamfight impact, as the power of Axe is if you get a single cull, the movement speed that you give to your support heroes, which is a lot more important than giving it to your core heroes, ensures that, much like the Centaur War and the Stampede, very difficult to pick off their backline. So you're able to reposition yourself to play either defensively or aggressively. You can use it to completely retreat, to reset that fight, give yourself some breathing room for your cooldown to refresh, for the enemy's BKBs or their ultimates to start to wear off, or you can use it to play aggressively to hunt down more heroes. So like the Disruptor, every time you lose a fight and you try to disengage against an Axe, you're going to be taking 1 more casualty than you'd like, if he's able to get a dunk off. It's a very powerful hero in these early skirmishes because you're able to get so much more out of them than you usually would. But of course, the weakness of Axe is he tapers off incredibly quickly. So you have those 20 to 25 minutes to really make a massive impact and to put your team in a far enough position that you can try to win the game. In this case, because you've got the Slark who actually opts to pick up a Shadow Amulet very early on, so telegraphing to the enemy team that he is going for a Shadow Blade, Lenteef most likely, or Megalomania will be pinging that out. Because they're going to be spending a lot of the time looking at the mini-maps. So one of the things the offlaner or the support player should be doing is clicking on the enemy team, checking items, pinging them out for the rest of your team. just so they're in the loop and they're not suddenly caught unprepared by a Blink Dagger or something like a Shadow Blade. The weakness of the Shadow Blade is much like going for Dagon first and the next Assassin. It limits your initiation, it limits your mobility. On a hero like a Slark who already has so much mobility, the Blink Dagger is absolutely fantastic because it lets you function as a ghetto anti-mage. You could run in, play very aggressively, disengage with the Shadow Dance, and then re-engage because you've got the life that you regain from that. Mule going in on 2. Should be the dunk down Sidu. One more right click, dunks them. Oranges as well, now got to be very careful. RP being cancelled before was used as they realized even those 2 against 1 acts as an army in of himself. Really making an impact, especially now he's got that level 2 Culling Blade. Looking absolutely ridiculous. He might actually even choose to go for something like a BKB first. He goes to Megalomania, doesn't even need the Culling Blade. One more right click, just chops him down. The axe is in action, and things are looking a little bit grim for Joey. They do still have some measure of farm coming in, as it looks like in terms of net worth. Because UGTFO hasn't been doing as well as Lenti, they are falling a little bit behind. They know that Joey, if Nicotic is able to find farm, they've got superior late game. Nicotic choosing to go for a casual brace, so just going into that Battle Fury, he actually almost has it. So he should be finding it in the next 3 minutes if he doesn't get picked off. So they really have to apply pressure to him. Looks like the rest of Joey, they're the draw fire from Mule, take away the Wrath of the X, while Nicotic just is able to scurry around the map, find his farm. The biggest strength of the 4 position Zeus is he does end up seeing amount of damage. If Zeus is able to get off his entire complement of spells and get a few heroes in range of the static field, he immediately starts a fight with the enemy team at about 30 to 40% HP, with one of their heroes near death. Especially a hero like the Rubik, he can actually burst him down on one cycle of his spells. And so once he's done that, it doesn't really matter if he dies or not, because he's done so in that second and a half that he's able to effectively win you that fight. Lenti, usually he would stay alive through that with the Malediction not being enough, but with that Thunder God's Wrath, should be enough for a kill. So once again, the synergy being shown between the Witch Doctor and the Zeus, because you got the execution power coming in from the Thunder God's Wrath, coming in from halfway across the map, really does make the Malediction a lot more valuable, because you've got that guaranteed way to remove enemies' HP. Sentry Ward being placed by the Dire side, they were prepared. So it looks like they have been scouting out items, and King Killer, the first Shadow Blade usage is going to be the most important, much like the first Blink Dagger, because you're usually able to catch the enemy team completely off guard. It's the reason why you should always item check, especially if he decides to telegraph his item choice by picking up the Shadow Amulet. You usually see pro players, if they do decide to go for a Shadow Blade, not pick up have any of the components on them, not even have it on the courier until it's finished. On the off chance the enemy team is aware that you're building a Shadow Blade, and they start spamming sentries into their lanes, it really can work against you. Looks like this time the Radiant supports are starting to pick up a bit more farm, but once again, Team Joey really showcasing their efficiency. The supports have a lot more last hits. In terms of net worth, I believe they're a bit further ahead as well. Axe dunks down Insidu while that was happening, but Nicotic finds a retaliatory kill on Cox, but King Killer's going in on this. Nicotic doesn't have any mana. It's going to be an easy kill going to Kin. Easiest pounce of his life, stabs him down, and he's more than happy to throw his teammates' lives away if he's able to get a kill from that. Since the biggest weakness of the Shadow Blade, the biggest strength, is it's an entirely snowball-dependent item, much like the Orchid first on Clinks. If you're able to find a few kills off that, you can really turn that around. Lenteef eats the Thunder God's Wrath, gets dunked by a Mule. It's going to be 2. Megalomania gets chopped down as well. RP comes in from Oranges, but he's fleeing for his life. Panic Ravage, Panic throws out the Shockwave, and UGTFO spits in his face, and Broda finds some much needed farm. Looks like he's not going for the Soul Ring this game. He's found enough farm to pick up his Arcane Boots. Really does solve the mana issues with the rest of his team. And Mule, he's going to be going for a Heaven's Halberd as his first big item. Very interesting pickup. Well, it actually looks like it's going to be a Sanjin Yasha. So Mule, channeling his inner Southeast Asian, going for the Pinoy build. You usually see something like a... If he is going for the Sanjin Yasha, you usually see Phase Boots picked up first to further synergize with the movement speed, as well as to give yourself some damage. So taking the term carry axe, literally actually building carry items. Bit of an unconventional build coming in from Mule, but because axe is constantly in your face and getting these right clicks, the maim actually does help out. Especially since Nicotic, he's the only real form of physical DPS. So if you're guaranteed to kill Nicotic, you could build whatever the hell you want, so long as you pick him off in these fights. You could shrug off everything else the rest of your team does, so long as you have an answer for the Ember Spirit. If you're not able to deal with him, that's when the game plan starts to fall apart the seams. UGTFO, still no Blink Dagger available for him, and it's really showing. Has had one Ravage so far, absolute disaster. Hasn't really been able to make good use of the Ancients or even the jungle, so Very inefficient plays coming up from the Tide Hunter. Usually when you pick up a Tide, you pick him up much like with the Bat Rider, with the understanding that if you do poorly in your lane, you have that comeback mechanic. If you're not able to utilize that, things go very poorly. King Killer goes in. Thunder God's Wrath used to ensure King can Shadow Dance out of there to avoid that Earth Split. Necrotic being stabbed, Mule goes in, unfortunately whiffs the call. Megalomania picks him up and tosses him back. But it looks like they should be able to safely disengage. So rare misplay coming up from Mule, saving Megalomania's life. He gets Battle Hungered though, and that does burn off about half his life. So Mule says, who's the real sucker now, sucker? Holding onto his gold for now. That maxed out Battle Hunger actually takes off half of Rubik's life every single time. And so that in conjunction with the Thunder God's Wrath instantly starts a fight 4v5. Rubik is effectively dead unless he's able to find a creep kill. Oranges looking to play very aggressively, blinking himself into the tree line as he spots the rotation coming in. UGTFO though, acting as the retard magnet, smacking down the tower and forcing the enemy team to respond to him. Much in the same vein that you see a Viper being used in the 8-1 meta, because they're beefy and because they're able to chip away at the tower, forces you to go on them. King Killer, Dark Packs a little bit too slowly, but he should be the final kill on Sidhu. Jakiro can't do anything against the Slark if he's caught out. In a team fight, Jakiro does have the Ice Path and the macro to deal with Slark inside his Shadow Dance, but if he's caught out with the Shadow Blade, things really go poorly. And so even though they realized King Killer was going for the Shadow Blade, they've given him 3 kills, and that's effectively made the Shadow Blade pickup worthwhile, because now he's starting to snowball ahead. He's got enough gold from that he can afford an ultimate orb, and because he got these pickoffs, instead of going for a BKB, which would be the safer pickup, he can afford to go straight for the Skadi. And the Skadi or the Slark is an absolutely terrifying thing. UGTFO could choose to actually use the Ravage if he really wants to ensure this kill, but they realize Necrotic doesn't have enough mana, so to guarantee it. And Mule, I look away from him for 1 second, he's already dunked in someone's face. Looks like he did get a kill over on Oranges, so Oranges once again underperforming as a core. With that Blink Dagger, he's got a successful RP, and the rest of his team weren't really there to be able to capitalize. It was a disengage RP at best. And UGTFO with his Blink Dagger, now exerting his presence across the map. Maelstrom actually being picked up by Mule, and so Axe picking up other Axe-shaped objects. This is an incredibly unconventional build. I don't think I've ever actually seen Axe building carry items. You usually see Axe build EHP boosting items like the Assault Cuirass, or something like a Blade Knell, which is the conventional pub build for the Axe. That being said, if Axe is able to find a Mjolnir, being able to apply the Static Storm buff to yourself before you blink in could be a huge game changer, especially with the attack speed you get from that and the damage you get from Sanjin Yasha. Axe actually deals a substantial amount of DPS because he's got an above average agility gain for a strength hero. He actually does scale fairly well in terms of attack speed. UGTFO taking farm away from Broda, so the support once again not being able to find too much farm. But that being said, Broda has a Blink Dagger, and this is an item that you see on the core position in Zeus. So if he went mid, Arcane Boots and Blink, it's very difficult to catch Zeus in the position, since much like Sniper or Draw Ranger go for Blink first, their one weakness is their low mobility. If you could solve that, you're then able to run around undisputed in these fights. 2-man RP on Cox and on King Killer. The Earth Split actually instantly burns down Cox. Ken able to keep himself alive with Dark Pack, Broda caught out of position, and the wombo combo Joey instantly finds them 2 quick pickoffs. But that's the 4 and the 5, not too big of an issue. They did end that spree though, and that's going to be a fair amount of golden experience going to their hands. Just off those 2 kills, 3,000 EXP swing. But Mule goes in with a double damage on their entire team. Yield Scepter from Sidhu. Ravage actually comes in, catches out full. UGTFO. He says, who's underperforming now? He goes in on Megalomania. Lentiv with the Echo Slam. Actually, the Stomp, sorry, is able to keep himself alive from Mule, who doesn't have enough mana to dunk. Looks like the Battle Hunger was enough. Necrotic goes in for this, but he doesn't have enough for a Remnant now. And King Killer, hot on his tails. He's got Pounce available. Snags him. And Necrotic should be taking a death. Throws out Slate of Fist, but Mule just punches him down. Beyond godlike, 13-1 for 2. The unorthodox Axe pickup, especially with the unorthodox build he's going, really paying dividends. As he jumps against their entire enemy team, there are 4 heroes there. He blinks on his own. If Sidhu wasn't able to Yule Scepter him in time, would have been an instantly pop Megalomania. And then UGTFO comes in for the big Ravage. Mule, being the MVP of nah mate, as per usual, really pulling plays out of absolutely nowhere. This time with a lot of backup coming in from Kin, as well as with Broda being able to provide that execution power from across the map. Nah mate, throwing the textbook out of the window, going in for something completely out of the ordinary and catching Joey off guard. Much in the same vein that Go Black is able to draft something completely out of the ordinary that catches even top tier teams off guard in the best of 1 series. Nah mate, really channeling the the inner Eastern European. Ken though caught in a position with Sidhu with that Yule Scepter. He is able to Dark Pack and Shadow Dance in time, keeping himself alive. Broder goes in for the Thunder God's Wrath. Execution, the Earthsplit does land on Broder, not going to be enough to be able to bring him down though. And Broder, he doesn't care if he dies at this point. He's saved his carry. And Ken comes in from the back line, bushwhacks the Elder Titan. He's got the Shadow Blade now, can even look to go for a backstab. He's aware that they see him, because there's the Sentry Ward there. But Mule, he's there to back him up as a frontline hero, picks up a Reaver. So picking up, once again, more axe-associated objects. Sanjin Yasha, that was him selling out. And Slark, he's almost got his Ayascati, or Ayascotti rather. Things are looking very grim for Team Joey, as there's a 10,000 gold lead in there going against him, as well as a 12,000 experience lead. This is the power of the axe. While he does taper off after the 20 to 25 minute mark, if you get so far ahead with him and you're able to find these pickoffs, take these towers, take these fight and snowball, it doesn't matter after that point when you've lost your timing window, because you've got so many items, you've created so much space for the rest of your team that you should be able to still close out the game. Goes in on Nicotic, gotta be very careful, caught inside the call, and Mule, he should be able to dunk him down. He says, where's your remnant? 4-man smoke rotation coming in from Joey. They really need to be able to find a pick-off on Mule. He's a big fat stack of cash, big old cash pinata. If they're ever able to kill him, that being said, easier said than done. You've got 2.5k HP, and you've got 55 armor when he pops the call. We've got a harder Tarask flying out to him. They decide to go in for Roshan, but I don't think they actually have enough damage to be able to deal with this. They don't even really have any form of sustain to be able to keep Oranges in the front line. Lenti tanking shots, but no mech on him yet. Megalomania, they're looking very poor this time around. They might actually be able to take it just because of Liquid Fire. So we've got some Cloud9 players coming in from Joey. When behind, you smoke into Roche. Leave your Tier 2 out to dry. UGTFO should be able to clean that one up, unless Mule takes it first. So now we've got the harder Tarask. We've got the Ayascati coming online for the Slark. And things are looking incredibly grim for Joey, even if they are able to take this Roshan, which looks like it's actually giving them a lot more trouble than they'd like. Nicotic finally joins the fray. Battle Fury online, but a Battle Fury on an Ember Spirit compared to a Shadow Blade as well as a Skadi on Slark. Ember Spirit's a hero that relies on hanging at the periphery of a fight. You never want to directly engage and right-click them, unless you know that you're going to be able to win that fight 1v1. So maybe after everyone's dead, you zip in, throw out one cheeky right-click. Otherwise, you're going to hang back, spam out the Sleight of Fist, and constantly disengage, re-engage, using the Remnant. Axe and Slark, they're the exact opposite. They jump on you, they start hitting you, and they keep hitting you until you die. Slark is able to corner you, pin you down, and then have his way with you. Nicotic, he avoids it, but UGTFO, he's got the Ravage, doesn't want to use it in case he Remnants out. Nicotic burns all 3 of his Remnants. There's now a 30-second window. Ken almost lands that pounce. If he was able to land it, things would be looking very grim. Ken Shadow Dances preemptively to prevent any follow-up coming from Sidhu. Great play coming from Nicotic with that last-minute Remnant keeping himself alive, but that being said, 3 Remnants gone. There's a 15-second window where he's got absolutely nothing to be able to disengage with. But the Tier 2 tower they're losing at least. Broder drops a ward, then spams lightning, so this is the power of the 4-position Zeus. Your wards are never safe. It's effectively the same as having a gem once he has the Arcane Boots, because you can just spam the Lightning Bolt, wherever you think there's going to be a ward, and because you've got a Slark, you know where the wards are. This is the added benefit of having the Slark. You've got the Shadow Dance to show you where the wards are placed, or give you the rough estimation, and then you've got the Zeus to be able to clean them up. So the Slark-Zeus synergy, we're doing a huge amount of work. Mule, Lenti looks like he's actually might have lagged out, as he positioned himself a bit too far forward. Mule just cuts him down, even though Mule actually whipped that call, so he called before he blinked, but all's well that ends well. They do go on Mule, though they might actually be able to bring him down at last. Ravage comes in, Mule says, where you at? With the counter helix, kills him even when he's stunned. There ain't no stopping this Axe train. UGTFO can't do with the Ravage. Lenti, take your 4 Megalomania. He did steal that Ravage, but then instantly dies to Mule, who's still beyond godlike. Broder burns down the Nicotic, was able to magically keep himself alive during that engagement. King Killer uses the Shadow Dance, goes on Nicotic. He doesn't have any Remnants. Using Sleight of Fist to keep himself alive, but now that's not going to be enough. Ken saw the Ice Spark coming from a mile away. Buyback coming from Nicotic. They have to be able to try to defend that Tier 3 now. Otherwise, they could try to close out the game. But yeah, nah, mate, they know when they've overstayed their welcome. They decided to back off, or at least Broder is. Never mind, Coxie is. Ken, he's hanging around. He's got the Shadow Dance regen to stay on lane. Still able to find his farm. It will be interesting to see what he goes for next. Most likely going to be a Cranium Basher to ensure that he's got another way to lock down the Ember Spirit. Slark is a very powerful pickup against the Ember Spirit, especially usually you go for the Blink on Slark, so you can Blink on top of Ember, pounce him, and once you have the Basher or the Abyssal Blade, you can lock him down and kill him before he can run down out or do anything else. In this case, you've got the Axe that can do it. So you've got the primary initiation with the Axe, then when they try to deal with the Axe, UGTFO comes in from the side. Oranges watches his teammate die, doesn't even try to help, he realizes there's nothing he can do, and he just waddles back home. Mule, if he gets any bigger, he'll implode inside himself like a neutron star. Absolutely farm through. He's got more net worth than almost the entire enemy team combined. So Sidhu, Oranges, and Nicotic, they just barely have the same amount of net worth as Mule. So when you can't even deal with one of their heroes, how do you expect to deal with all 5 at the same time? Especially with Kin constantly being a nuisance, he actually does deal a lot more damage than Mule overall. Looks like he's going for the Orchid of Malevolence to further counteract the Ember Spirit. If you a Silenced Ember is a dead Ember Spirit, it's Ember, much like a Mirana, doesn't want to go for a BKB unless he absolutely has to. Because it's a waste of an item slot on him, it really delays his core items. On an Ember Spirit, you either want to go for damage, and so go for a Battle Fury, maybe 2 Battle Furies into a Daedalus, or 1 into a Daedalus, maybe even a Desolator. Or you want to go for more of a teamfight oriented utility build, where you go for a Skadi Rush. And the rationale behind that is it gives you the ability to constantly reapply that snare, so you go for that item if you think you're going to be fighting early, and if you have another core that you can rely on to be your physical DPSer. In this case, he's it. So the buck stops with him, he has to be the only form of physical DPS this game, because Oranges, he's not going to be finding it. Magnus, because he builds utility items, he's not really going to be providing too much right-click damage. He does have the Empower, though, to work well with Nicotic. They do have the Magnus synergy with the Ember Spirit, but because Nicotic's been so heavily shut down by Mule, it's looking very difficult for Joey. With that being said, they do have the incredible strengths of their lineup, which is how difficult it is to breach high ground against them. You're walking into the Echo slot of Lenteith, you're walking into the Ice Path of Sidhu, you've got the potential reverse polarity coming in from Nicotic, sorry, not from Oranges, and then you've got Nicotic spamming out the Slater Fist, so it's looking very difficult for Yename to catch Joey off guard and try to breach high ground unless they plan to pick off outside the base. Megalomania, got to be very careful, places a very aggressive ward forward. In this case, it's a bit of a defensive ward just to see if you see someone rotating onto the side. It's currently coming from here, particularly Mules, it's going to be blinking in from that location so they don't have vision. But at the same time, because it's so far forward, Broda might not even be aware that it's there. Ken might actually spot it out now. The Shadow Dance should have actually told them there's a ward there, they have some kind of vision of him. And Mule with the Molnir, actually doing a substantial amount of DPS. The Sanjin, Yasha, Molnir, carry Axe build, by all definition of the word. Picking up further Axe-associated items. He might actually look to go for... What's another Axe he could go for at this point? Maybe just stack Reavers? Or even go for something like a Daedalus, since he's actually got the attack speed to pull it off. King Killer with the Orchid Malevolence, looks like he actually used it earlier, so he might have been using it to farm creeps. Peng's coming out for a Mule, so he realizes there might be some kind of vision there. Brodo decides to check it out. UGTFO actually gone for a Necronomicon, so they realize their biggest weakness is their lack of push potential. Especially since Mule isn't going for an Assault Cuirass anytime soon. Brodo panic blinks back, and the off chance they chose to go in for an engagement, realizes it's just a sentry. And Joey, they've got a very powerful late game lineup if Nicotic is able to find farm. But because he's been so heavily shut down, yeah, nah, mate, they can choose to take their time. They can wait until Roshan is up, they can wait till they farm the next set of items. You've now got the Aghanim Scepter coming online for Cox, so he's another core hero you have to deal with. Yeah, nah, mate, effectively a Pentacore lineup, and Nicotic gets caught way far out of position, not too sure what he was doing there with no vision. Echo Stomp lands, but Ken with the Orchid, followed up by Mule. Slam dunks you. 2000 EXP lead going to their hand. Thunder God's Wrath being used. They want to take this fight. Broder, he doesn't care if he dies. He's done his job. He spammed out so much damage. They should be able to win this engagement decisively, especially since Oranges, no reverse polarity. Mule predicts the blink, then goes in with the call. King Killer with the Shadow Dance, keep himself alive, and now Mule got to be very careful. Looks like we do have a buyback coming in from Oranges. Reverse polarity completely whips. So instead of being a potato, he decides to be an orange. UGTFO goes in on Sidhu. He's got the gush to be able to finish him off. Actually gets cycled up into the air by Sidhu, so Sidhu keeps himself alive for now. They were finally able to bring down the raid boss. of mules. They get a massive influx of gold going to their hands. 2,400 gold from 2 kills because so much net worth was invested into mule, but they lose the set of racks. And once you lose the high ground advantage when you have an Ember Spirit, you no longer have the ability to be able to defend high ground. Looks like GG well played's been called. So 33 minutes into the game, yeah, nah, mate, off a spectacular performance coming in from the unorthodox lineup, with Mule once again being the MVP as the Axe, as well as the potent synergy coming out from the Slark as well as the Zeus to be the D-Ward. You've got the execution power for the Malediction with the Thunder God's Wrath, and then UGTFO tied into just providing that additional anchoring presence with the sheer amount of teamfight and counter-initiation capability. So Axe jumps in, initiates, when they try to deal with Axe, then UGTFO comes in from the side, catches out the entire enemy team. Joey, where they went wrong, they really should have sent Magnus into the mid lane because you have Necrotic as your only real form of late game. You cannot afford for him to get shut down in any way at all. When they saw the Axe pick up after the Zeus, they should have realized that the only way their lanes would make sense is if they sent Axe mid. But that being said, yeah, nah, mate, to give them credit, they did decide to go for some sneaky mind games, actually switching Broder around with Mule once they were in game to throw off Team Joey. So really good performance coming in from them. Joey might have actually underestimated, yeah, nah, mate, thinking they might go for a greedy Axe jungle and have Zeus still go into that mid lane, but it really was decided in that mid lane matchup. If it was Magnus in the mid lane, even if Mule was able to snowball and destroy Magnus end lane, Necrotic would have been able to find some farm, as UGTFO didn't really have too much impact in the offlane, and so that would have guaranteed the Battle Fury coming online a lot earlier from Necrotic, would have ensured that they would have had some way to be able to try to defend high ground, because you're going to be pushing against the Battle Fury empowered Slate of Fist, which does an obscene amount of damage, especially against the squishy support to the Zeus as well as the Witch Doctors. The greedy lineup coming in from the duo supports, the Witch Doctor Zeus, really being working out because you had the constant pressure of the Axe, and King Killer, even though he opted to go for Shadow Blade, because they had no way to really deal with the Slark and the Axe, really was able to pull that through for a win. So that looks like it for now. FortyeniN Community Shoutcaster for the UGC League, for the Eastern Invite, as well as the Australia and New Zealand Iron Division. If you've enjoyed tonight's broadcast, do subscribe to the channel. I do apologize for the internet and my mic being a little bit funny for game number 2. I'll have to get that sorted out. Hopefully should be fixed for future series, but all in all, that should be it for now. Stay tuned for more. Thanks for watching.